Hello, humans, and welcome to the Harmony and Humanity podcast, where we're all about highlighting the common ground we all share, which is inspiring conversations that lead to real world. We're getting a big old echo from somebody.
Oh,
And it's
I
from
don't
me.
hear any echo.
No, I think it's from me. Silly me. Oh boy.
We are here today with lots of technical issues, folks, so please bear with us
Yeah,
if one of us just
tons.
completely cuts out.
Tons and tons of
Don't mind
technical
us.
issues.
I believe it's pronounced technical.
Technical. So, all right.
Thank you.
So I am Amethysta Herrick. I'm here. I'm joined by Dr. Lino Martinez. Hi, Lino.
Hello.
And also Miss Jasmine Vine, the lovely and talented. Hello, Jasmine.
Hello, technically it is Jasmine Vine, that's correct.
Technically. So we are three transgender humans combining science, spirituality, and lived experience, all with the purpose of showing that we have much more in common than that which separates us. So in today's live stream, so last week we started talking about, we started talking about like some biochemical aspects of gender. And so today we want to deconstruct that. Where does gender come from? There's no doubt Jasmine and Lino and I have things to ask each other, but we would love if you left a comment in the chat, and if you are getting this after the fact, if you're watching this after a fact, just leave a comment in the comment section. So Lino, do you remember you had started off? We had finished up last week. You had said that you're much stronger now with testosterone. Not a surprise, but you're much stronger with testosterone. And you had said, well,
I have a story about that actually.
All right, go. Let's hear
On
it.
how I discovered that I was stronger on testosterone. This is really funny. First of all, I was having technical difficulties. My microphone wasn't connecting, so this is just coming from my laptop. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, it's working.
That's good to me.
Great. So I have this funny story. I used to have this habit. I say because I'm pausing here because it's kind of embarrassing, but here I go. I used to have this habit of picking on, pimples on my face. And I'd be like, oh, here's one and here's another. Next thing I know, it's been like 45 minutes in the mirror. And so I had this bad habit. And then when I got on testosterone, and I started getting facial hair, the habit was still there. It actually got a little worse for a bit. But one thing I realized that I was stronger was because the amount of strength that it took before to pop a pimple as a woman, I was pushing really hard. And then this time as a dude, I was pushing, as a man identified as a dude, feeling comfortable saying that, I was pushing with what I thought was the same amount of strength. The next thing I know, my finger slipped and I made myself bleed so hard and made a big scar. I was like, oh my gosh. And that's how I realized that I was stronger as a man because popping my pimples I was forcing myself. It was crazy. I then realized, I was like, whoa, I have to be a little more gentle now with my face.
That is a weird way to find that out.
Not the way I would want to, I'll say that. Oh my gosh. That is awful.
Excuse me, yes.
So how does this end up, because we had spoken, so last week, you were saying, because you are stronger, that we started talking about like actual physical strength and gender roles.
Yeah.
So follow up on that. What do you think about that, and how does physical strength necessarily play into that? Because you had mentioned hunters and gatherers.
If we don't talk about the history of gender, and you were just to ask me that now, hypothetically, a woman can be stronger than a man, or physically. I'm talking about physical strength.
Sure.
Or vice versa. Depending on what they've done in life, depending on their body shape, depending on if they've been practicing for a marathon or the Olympics or whatnot. But the actual amount of strength that the hormone testosterone gives someone is stronger, and it's meant to be that way. And what I'm saying it's meant to be that way is because testosterone is meant to do a certain thing for a human body to be able to promote survival in a certain way. And so that I mean, and because of that, we're doing this episode, because we can go on so many different angles, like what is gender and what makes a male a male and what makes a female, and is it the strength, or is it the roles, or is it the genetics? I mean, or is it the anthropologically speaking, I mean, what is gender in this case? And that's why I'm glad that we're talking about this, because a lot of people have mix-ups thinking that things have to be cookie cutter and they're only a certain way. But it's really, I think it's important to really kind of just break down some of these pieces so that people get some understanding on where some of these other ideologies came from.
Oh, for sure. So let me acknowledge a couple of people. Brooklyn Cherry says, "Good afternoon from California." Hello,
Hey, Brooklyn.
We also have Zoe here, who says she cannot afford to lose much more strength from starting estrogen.
Oh, hello, Zoe. Right. Well.
And then we also have, it's Miss Margarita Fancy Pants, but I know her as Margie.
I love that name.
Right?
Miss Margarita Fancy Pants.
Yes. So she says she was super strong pre-transition, outlifting. Look at that. Outlifting guys 50% more massive than she was in the machine shop. Is also fortunate to have nearly no muscle wasting. So as a chick, I am absurdly strong, is how she says. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a great point, that it's not testosterone necessarily. Testosterone certainly does promote muscle growth, or at least muscle tissue growth, but doesn't necessarily define the efficiency of said muscles, whether it's fast twitch fibers or slow twitch fibers in the muscles. So, because I mean, I've always been super weak, and I will say this too. I had a crap ton of testosterone in my body, but I wasn't able to utilize it very well. Right? So as a result, I ended up with not a lot of muscles, not a lot of strength. So anyway, we had originally, one of the things we were talking about last week had to do with hunters and gatherers. You said that men were necessarily stronger, and so they became hunters. Women were necessarily less strong, and so were necessarily gatherers. I kind of want to challenge that too, because there's I think of it this way. It depends on the hunting, right? I mean, if you're good, once we started doing bows and arrows, which was pretty quickly, does strength matter much? There's somebody out there right now who's going to say, yeah, assuming you were in England when they were doing the British longbows that were made out of yew and about 6 feet tall. I'm not talking about that. Just cut it out. So I don't know. We could talk about lions, where the females typically are the ones who go hunting because they tend to be stealthier because they're smaller. Male lions end up, when they do hunt, they always end up in like tall grass because they're always like, oh shit, oh damn it, ooh, no, they saw me, I know, okay, I'll go back to the camp. Male lions hunting.
Sorry, my mane is just too luscious.
Right.
Getting in the way.
Right.
So are we saying, like, if we're bringing it back to hunters and gatherers kind of stuff, are we saying that biology in part plays into what social roles we go into? Like, what was the intention?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go follow up on that, because I'd love to hear more.
Yeah.
No? No, I'm talking to you, Nino. Sorry.
Because right now, as you're talking about all this, I'm also thinking. I mean, I wish I would have maybe researched a little more as far as how testosterone interplays with muscle mass, and exactly like how it. And that way, I could actually talk to the audience about the breakdown or how it actually builds muscle mass. Because if in speaking of, like, in terms of survival, if an animal or a mammal were to see a female physique, I mean, and then see a physique of a bigger muscles, they might feel a little more threatened. Mm-hmm. So for me, what I'm seeing here is that because of testosterone, a man is able to get bigger muscles than a female or just a woman or a human being only mostly running on estrogen. Therefore, it would be up to the person that's appearing a little more threatening physically for survival to go out to be hunters and women be gatherers. So, I mean, in terms of survival, I can definitely see that would, and if it's coming to me in my mind, most likely there's truth in this. And so I'm feeling, I mean, even just animals in the animal kingdom, they're going to go for the weakest link before they go they really are looking, they're sizing up.
Sure.
So I can feel that it's the same with humans.
Yeah. I mean, there are, oh gosh, so many directions we could go. Because male lions tend to hunt alone, female lions tend to hunt in packs. But then there's also an evolutionary biologist named Daniel Lieberman, who is at Harvard, I believe. He wrote a book, I'm going to forget the name of it, but he wrote a book where he thought that the reason why Neanderthalensis, Homo neanderthalensis, went extinct versus Homo sapiens not going extinct is because Homo sapiens had the capability of running for long distances. So it was more endurance having to do more with endurance than strength. And so Homo sapiens could literally run animals to death. And so we actually found a tribe. There was an African tribe still that did, I think they just called it endurance hunting. So, but I want to bring up another point. So I've just thrown out a bunch of goofy things that have nothing to do with anything. I want to bring up one other point though, because I think about social roles as well. Because like imagine, oh, and by the way, so Margie says she'd be a fierce lioness. No, Margie, you are right now a fierce lioness. Oh, this is what I was going to say. I think back to like early, like I'm thinking of like British tribe kind of peoples here. And there were, you wanted people who were good at hunting, but then there were people who had social roles as well. So like I think of it like the blacksmith. This is a guy who had to wield a hammer all day, right? So chances are good
Right.
he was probably pretty strong, but you didn't want that guy going out into battle because he's got to fix the weapons, he's got to make new weapons, he's got to fix the shields, he's got to make armor. And I can see the same even with like the flour miller. This guy had to be pretty hefty because he's got these big, massive, rocks. The flour mill he's got to move around, but now he's feeding the troops, and so I think there's a social aspect to it as well, and that's supposed to be my point. What do you think?
I can see that. I mean, definitely, there's going to be different roles interchangeably playing within the dynamic of a masculine energy for survival and to serve the best and the greater good of humanity. Also, depending on what time of, what period of history or time that we're looking at.
Right.
We're looking at.
I agree.
Jasmine, you're lost in thought. What you thinking?
I'm actually trying to find a video which I just found.
Oh, excellent.
Have either of you heard of Robin Holdaway?
Not off the top of my head, not ringing a bell.
Okay. Because they do some really cool videos about breaking down gender. And I was trying to figure out what their explanation of it is. They call it a biopsychosocial construct.
That makes sense.
And the way they break it down is really interesting. It's a long video, so I can't really. I'm trying to find it so I can. Yeah. What did I say? Robin Holdaway.
Holdaway? Yeah.
Oh gosh, because I was going to send you both the video that I was talking about before this stream, and I forgot.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that this came up on my feed this morning while I was getting little snacks together for today.
It's called alignment.
Yes.
Synchronicity.
What is gender? And the way they've broken it down, like we know that sex exists on a bimodal distribution, not a binary distribution. And so they were talking about how sex could be separated into like 3 separate categories if we accounted for that, or it could be separated into more depending on how we decide to define it, whether it's chromosomes or gametes or hormones or whatever else. And they were talking about how gender, we don't necessarily know where it comes from, but we can expect that part of it is biological, part of it is social, and part of it is, what's the other aspect that I said?
Psycho. Yeah, the
Yes, okay.
biopsychosocial model is something that's used a lot in evolutionary psychology
Right.
to look at
What's your
changing
thoughts on that,
cultures.
sister?
I mean, it's a good question. It's a good point. When I mean, it's in biology, what I learned was, you had said that sex is a bimodal distribution, and I would refine that slightly to say that primary and secondary sex characteristics occupy a bimodal distribution. That's different from the definition of sex, different from the definition of sex, which does include only what gamete is contributed to an act of reproduction. And that sounds super cagey. I'm saying an act of reproduction, right? But there are many species. So the reason why I'm being cagey is because the word sex doesn't apply only to humans. We were talking about male and female lions, right? There are also male and female, parts on plants. There are male and female reptiles, fish. So it's a definition that actually has to encompass all of the natural worlds. And so ultimately, scientists, when they think about sexual reproduction, break it down just by gametes. Do you create a small one or do you create a big one? And
just to clarify, the big one is essentially egg, small one is sperm, right?
yes.
And in the plant world, I'm assuming it's like the one that fertilizes has the smaller. Okay.
You have pollen and ovules, and in fish generally, you have eggs and sperm usually, but there are some species that will just sort of let out a whole big cloud of chromosomal matter, and you go, ooh, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But the point's supposed to be
Can I
that
say as well,
what?
We also know that there are some creatures or certain things where we can produce both large and small gametes, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Well, and so that's why I said in one act of reproduction, what did you contribute in this one act of reproduction? So one of the biggest problems we face, especially being transgender, is people go, well, you can't change sex. Who's the you here? Because there are many species that can produce both gametes, sometimes at the same time. There are actually species that I'm trying to remember the species, but it's a fish. There's
Seahorse.
a fish. What's that?
Seahorse?
Well, there's one particular fish that I can think of in particular that's a lot of particulars that have that can create both gametes, and they can create them simultaneously. And as they mate, as they go into a mating season, generally they trade off. So like they'll float around and they'll swim, I guess, fish, but they'll swim around and they'll be like, so what do you're going to make eggs? Okay. I'll drop sperm here. And then the next one, you're doing, okay, I'll drop the eggs. And I mean, they'll change it several times during the hour.
Yeah.
The point
I
being
love the idea of that being a negotiation like that.
Yes. Because, they're doing
That's
like
so
little fin things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, hilarious.
Yes. But that's why. So when you think of biopsychosocial, which typically is kept in terms of what I have read is that is an evolutionary psychology thing, biopsychosocial, to imply that the evolution of the human psyche is affected by physicality. It's affected by how we think, what we end up learning, and then, of course, the social environment around us. And so those three things also affect reproduction, sexual reproduction. So let's go back to those fish, right? The bio part of that is...
Margarita says those trans fish sound adorable.
They're fun. There are some great ones, but...
Which gamete are you going to produce today?
Yes. No, I think they do it with little fin things.
What if we just did an entire stream just doing this?
Oh my goodness.
Watch?
Right, and
I'm a bit chaotic today, sorry.
So anyway, the bio part, what gametes are you capable of creating? Psycho, what there is a sense of identity involved in this, and then social, obviously, if you have two organisms that have to come together to do sexual reproduction, then there's a social aspect to it as well. So anyway, so I do agree with was it Holdaway? I think it was their name. Did you say?
Yeah.
Robin Holdaway.
Oh, I would love to watch this video together, but it's 9 minutes long.
I wish I could stick it on screen, but so anyway. No, it would be tough to do at this point now, but with the way I've stuck everything together. But so anyway, there is a lot to it. I mean, in my own, in the work that I've done anyway, when we look at sex, it comes down to what are you capable of creating? What gametes are you capable of creating? But since there is such a range of species, the word sex just doesn't capture it all. And so we use gender, which does take into account the type of gametes you can make, a social interaction. And then, of course, there's at least when you get up into humans, probably primates, there's mammals anyway. Although maybe reptiles think this, who knows? And maybe the fish, as they're doing this, do have, a lot of fun talking to each other. But there is, a psychological component to it as well. And so, anyway. So it comes down to each act of reproduction. It's kind of ridiculous. So let me read one of Margie's comments here, by the way, since I keep talking. So she says, in terms of oddities, oh, that's right, you mentioned this one. So Margie is an XY chimeric tetrachromat. So chimeras are organisms that have more than one genotype in them. So some cells have one set of genes and some cells have other sets of genes. It's pretty cool. Chimeric tetrachromat. So is that to say that there are 4 different genotypes? So Margie says she has a recessive X-linked characteristic due to a bone marrow transplant. Oh, see? So a bone marrow transplant. So you did get somebody else's genetics and you actually intercalated that into your own. Crazy. Anyway. She also says she lived next to 3 Mile Island.
That's an interesting word.
I'm curious to know more about that. I mean, if you're getting somebody else's, because even as you're saying that, because even I've had 3 blood transfusions, and it's like, well, did I get any of their? I mean, obviously I got their genetic material, but at what point does our human body start to, I guess, commingle and even adapt or adopt some of those genetic variants?
Yeah, it's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's just really interesting to really think about. It'd be an interesting study to research, if people, because I'm certain, I know it's been a while, but I know that there's been people that have had heart transplants from other people where they will have dreams being the other person, or they'll meet the family member and the family member can feel them somehow. So I know that there's something going on that either I haven't really fully delved into, but it's got to be there. It's energy, right? And the energy doesn't die. So if the energy is just transforming itself into another body, then it makes sense that energy will somehow commingle with the new energy.
Yeah. You had mentioned energy earlier. Do you want to follow up on that, Lino?
Sure. Yeah. So, in thinking about gender and what encompasses gender aside from a psychosocial aspect of it, or biopsychosocial, there's the energy, there's the spiritual aspect, and as a lot of people will see, or even throughout history, Aztecs or Egyptians, and some of them can see the moon being feminine, but some cultures even say the moon is masculine. So I mean, is the sun masculine or feminine? But I mean, for the most part, they'll say the sun is masculine and the moon is feminine. However, you will hear both sides that no, well, this is feminine, well, this is masculine. But for the most part, more readings will show and say that the moon is feminine and the sun is masculine. And so these are energies that are existing, and we're just existing in a physical human form. This is our energetic form. So everything is frequency and vibration. And the reason why we're in physical form is because our vibration is vibing lower. So the lower the vibration, the more it turns into a matter, to a physical form. The higher the vibration, the closer it turns into light. And so that's why if when we vibrate at a really high rate, and even when we fast rate, and even when we pass on, we're left with what is our natural vibration, which is light. We're all light beings. And so in this lower vibrational state of reality that we live in, the third dimension, we are in physical form because we're vibrating at a lower frequency rate. And this is the physical form that we take. But in knowing that this is the physical form that we take, that means, and that would mean, that we are both energies, both masculine and feminine energies. We can't solidly be one full energy and that's it. We're never going to be one full energy. We need both energies to even exist. You need the sun for the moon and the moon for the sun. You know, we're all existing together. And so it really boils down to your energy and how you really feel in this current physical self that you have, and the energies that you choose to adapt or adopt that feels truest to you, the way that you choose to express yourself and carry on your energetic signature. And so I mean, I wrote a short poem. I usually wait to the end, but since we're talking about it, I'll read it right now because it has to do with this.
I have questions for you too. Read your poem though.
Okay, sure. So to be present with gender is to be present with both energies, for what encompasses either needs one for the other. And in this infinite energy of expression, I take this small session of thought to provoke a feeling long to invoke, but only to adhere to the truth, which is that I am both these energies commingling with nature, open to nurture, here to protect, and present to reflect. And so that's what came through me when I was thinking about gender and what the truth is. Because if you want to look at what truth is, universal laws, universal truth, we are light beings having a human experience.
Sure.
In a human body.
Can I ask you questions?
Yeah, of course.
How would you characterize a masculine energy? What makes energy masculine?
That's such a great question.
And
what makes energy masculine other than the definitions that we've given it? I would have to go with feelings, because feelings are is the language of the universe. So if I were to go with the feeling of what masculinity feels like to me masculinity feels I guess it does feel a little bit more stern, if that's the word, stern, a little bit more dominant, and dominant not meaning like I'm better than you, dominant meaning the opposite of submissive. And it also feels very protective. So the feeling that I feel is I'm here to protect you, whereas the feminine energy, if I feel into that, it feels a little bit more submissive, nurturing, and but they could both do the same thing.
They're both energies, right? I mean,
yeah, right. Both energies can do the same thing.
Well, they're both energy. I mean, forget about saying energies. I mean, it's
and you got that correct.
So my question ultimately, or my line of questioning, sorry, I didn't even realize you were going to get cross-examined here, but
I love it.
Well, because my line of questioning, when you look at like Western mystical tradition, Western magical tradition, you know, and some of this goes back. There's some Jewish mysticism in this. There's because Margie's got a great question here, by the way. What's the difference between protection and nurturing? Give me a second.
Right, that's an excellent question.
Because if you look at Western magical tradition, and much of this comes from humans' perception of the universe around them, that there are actions, is the way Western magical tradition puts it. The masculine actions are those that are initiating, that are activating, that are directing. Those are the three big terms. The feminine actions, presumably powered by feminine energy, are receiving, nurturing, completing. And so, but those are obviously very sexual terms, right? I mean,
Sure.
much of this came from, observing, when you end up, when you need meat so that you're going to make it through the cold winter, right? You got to make sure the livestock reproduces. And this is, if you look at many early civilizations, they focused very much on sex. They focused very much on the sanctity of sex, because it was both energies. It takes both energies, right? You had to activate something and then you had to complete it.
Right.
So Margie, let me give you my answer to this, and probably Lino's got his own. What's the difference?
I want to hear what Jasmine has to say too.
Definitely. What's the difference between protection and nurturing? Nurturing is a more internal and enclosing sort of thing, whereas protection is an external, going outward, which are all two other very big components, at least in the if you think about energies, masculine and feminine actions in Western magical tradition. I lost my train of thought halfway through that sentence there, so I mean, didn't lose it. I had another thought, but anyway, Jasmine, what do you think?
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? Sorry.
I feel like we're all over the place with this one, aren't we? It's a difficult one to discuss.
It is.
What's coming to my mind is around how those different energies can be interpreted in different ways among different cultures. So, for example, a friend of mine who grew up around like a big Greek family, they were really like, what? The women are the ones that are kind of loud and dominant. Like, they're the ones that do all these things, and yet he like listed all these things off. And in their world, that was the case. Like, the men were, by all accounts, more submissive in this larger sort of family structure. And that, like, my friend now interprets those different things as masculine and feminine in totally different ways to what other people would. So how much of it is that versus something that is an innate thing? I don't know.
I feel that a lot of it's definitely culture. That's why I'm trying to get like the actual feeling of it, if I were to feel it, and how much of my feelings are being influenced by my culture and my upbringing, which I'm sure there are a lot. So it's really it's really difficult to really differentiate how do you feel masculine versus how do you feel into feminine without using action words. That's what's really the tricky part. But something that I wanted to add aside from the culture. Thank you both for sharing. This is an incredible topic, right? What was it, Mary? I'm sorry. Who asked the difference? Was it Mary?
Margie. Yeah, Margie. Difference between protection and nurturing.
Margie, you just had me realize something. There is no difference. They're both protection and they're both nurturing, and they're both doing it with a different type of energy. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because protection, it could also be nurturing, and nurturing could also be protection. So it really, I believe, but what are the, it's got to be some kind of just energy. You know what I mean? If everything's an energy, a frequency, it's like it's like tuning the channel from like 95.5 to 95.6. And that tiny switch is what changes the energetic format and feeling.
Yeah. Because Margie went on to say perhaps protection is primarily physical, while nurturing is more emotional and spiritual. And I think I would go, that was kind of what I was trying to express.
I can definitely see both. Yeah. I can see both, but I can also see how they can both equally be spiritual.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, activating and directing isn't necessarily physical, right? So receiving and completing, not necessarily physical. So So we've gone on the side of gender is energy based, and we've gone down the what if it's strength and everything. What about in the middle? I mean, is it a combination of them?
Before we move on, I just want to mention a video that I watched the other day.
Yeah.
Which just like, oh, I don't know how to describe it, but it was a woman who was going like, oh, no, I don't want to have kids, yada, yada. And then she turns around and starts to walk away. And then hears a kid yell out, Mom, like sounding scared. And she like turns around and senses turn up and she's looking around like, where is this kid that needs protection? And she was talking about how it's something, this is her words, it's hardwired into, feminine people or into women, is what she said, that if we hear a child that is in danger, the child will yell out the word mum. They won't yell out dad. They won't yell out help. They won't yell out anything else. They'll yell out mum, which I thought was really interesting because I got to thinking, like, if a child was in danger and yelled out the word dad in public, I don't think nearly as many people would look. I think it'd be like, but if they yell out mum, something the same.
I think you're right.
And it's like, when we're talking about protection, there's this feminine tigress kind of thing. Like when I think of protection, I think of my mum. Like I called her my bulldog because she was the one who I would go to if I needed protection. She was the one who would fiercely be there for me. And I think that's the same for a lot of women and particularly mothers. That energy of protection, I think, is very strong. Potentially more so than the masculine counterparts. I don't know.
Can I ask you a couple questions about that?
Sure.
Because you said she would protect you. Was that protecting you emotionally, though? Because if you were frightened, so she would put up her dukes, and if somebody was chasing you, she would go,
yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, give him the front punch.
Absolutely.
A boot upside the head. All right.
She's like, I don't care if you're freaking 6'7", bring it on. She's like 5 foot nothing. But that was how she was. She was fiercely protective. And I think that's the case for a lot of animals. Like if you think of tigers,
it is.
Or like lions, whatever, the lioness is the one you want to be wary of.
Yeah. The mother bear.
Yeah, mother bear. Oh yeah, don't mess with the mother bear.
Well, so here's an interesting point, because Margie says, I heard long ago that males have subconscious reactions to babies that are negative until they have their own child. And then their subconscious reactions become attractive toward babies. I don't know.
Oh, that's
well. Could you kind of answer that or not? Not even.
Could I? Oh,
yeah.
Oh gosh, am I the only one here with a kid? Oh.
Yeah, I don't have any children.
I don't want. Hopefully, my kid doesn't hear this.
I don't have a kid, but I just want to say, watching that video, I felt something. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this being clucky? Yeah. Like, what is this? Because that feeling, I'm like, I really relate to that. If there's a kid yelling out mum, I'm like, okay, I don't care who you are. I'm going to throw hands. Like, stay away from that kid. That feeling is really strong. I don't know what that is. Anyway.
I think that's good. For what it's worth, though, I think when I guess to answer this question directly, the reason why I'm like, oh, my kid doesn't hear this is because I really never liked the sound of babies crying, like, at all. I still, it will get in my head, and I have to, like, poke stuff into my ears or it'll drive me nuts. So Margie's saying this is even measured by pupil reactions. Well, I didn't even know that moms and dads necessarily had students. Pupil reactions. Huh? Anyway.
For God's sake.
Was that a crap joke or what? That was a crap. Oh, eyes. Oh, who knew? But what I was going to say is that I think that since I transitioned, I have a much stronger reaction to children. Like now a kid will run by instead of me, because typically this was me. Now let me actually finish my sentence. If I go back 3-4 years, if a kid ran by, I'd be like, man, I tripped the little fucker. Ah, shitbag. Get out of here. Get the hell away from me. Now a kid runs by and I go, oh, hello. Oh, my name's Amy. What's yours? Yeah, that's a beautiful little dress you have on. Okay. Well, okay, bye. And I'm like, who the hell is this? When did
So
this happen?
are you saying that it's estrogen that provokes the nurture?
I don't know. So I was going to say it could be that, or it could be now I'm not as crabby and angry.
Right. Yeah, maybe you're just being more comfortable with yourself.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So I
so
don't
many
know.
different aspects that shifts. It's hard to pinpoint what it is.
I know. See, so now Margie says the sound of my baby's crying was intolerable torture. Yes. With my first babies, but since I started E, the sound of my baby crying was far more natural and dependent on actual danger or lack thereof. See, I agree. Like, it changed for me, and I was surprised. But I don't know. And what's weird is kids always reacted to me. Kids would see me and they'd stop and just look at me. Oh. I'm like, what are you doing? Go away. I don't like kids. Get out of here. But kids would always, now they do more because they're like, oh, Mom, do you see the lady with the purple hair? It's like that. But
yeah, I attract a lot of kids because, I'm barely like 5 feet tall. I'm a small dude. So kids stare at me and they're like, are you a kid or why do you have hair on your face?
oh my gosh. That's funny.
It is funny. Oh my goodness. It cracks me up, actually.
Yeah. So if we were, what if I threw this out here? What if I said, what about Judith Butler's social construct gender theory, that everything comes from society? Well, I don't want to say it like that. We're all aware of the definition of social construct. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good idea to tell our listeners or viewers what you find.
You want to do it? I don't.
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh well, okay. I mean, some of the social constructionism goes back to like the 16th century. I'm going to forget the guy's name. Michel de Montaigne, I think was his name. I speak French horribly. But he actually has a quote where he says, we need to interpret our interpretations more than we interpret the data. And so that ends up saying that if you have a social environment that interprets a certain data point, let's say, they might come to a different interpretation than a different social environment. And so all of this led into the philosophical movement, social constructionism, the idea that there are words and phrases that are only given meaning by being used within a social environment, that the meaning and in some cases even the concept behind it are constructed by that social environment for use within that social environment. And so when Butler spoke about that, in part what they were talking about was that gender expression changes. And so if you look at like pre-revolution France, it's very different from, modern Western society. I mean, there are certain things that have flipped entirely, masculine and feminine characteristics that have flipped entirely. Mm-hmm. Like long hair, makeup, and heels are feminine characteristics now, but pre-revolution France were very masculine because they made you look bigger and more fierce, right? So Jasmine, there you go. They're painting themselves up to look like lions. Presumably one of them was the Rum Tum Tugger. Mr. Mistopheles was off on the side. Nobody's liking my Cats reference.
I have not seen Cats, so I don't get it.
Crap. I'm so old.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just terribly terrible from what I've heard. So.
I guess so. But so anyway, the point being, thanks. The point being that this is so a social construct is a word or a phrase that's given meaning by its usage in a social environment. I think many people, when they hear that, when it's being used today, they mean it as whatever you think you are, you are. which isn't the definition of that philosophical movement. So anyway, so if we were to think about gender as a social construct, right? Because like Jasmine, right now, there you are with your long hair. Oftentimes I see you wearing heels. When I look at pictures of you, what's that?
Not much these days.
No?
Not much these days, no. I used to wear them all the time.
Well, they're like block heels. I mean, you had like sandals with block heels, maybe a couple of inches when you the other day when you sent the video to me. All right, moving on. Point being that
No, that was like combat boots.
God, were they? I could have sworn. Okay, I'm going to trust you. Point being
Anyway.
that Butler puts gender as a social construct, implying that all of our characteristics of gender are socially expressed, and that's how we understand them. And we barely understand, or you barely understand our physicality, because what we are social beings, and expressing, this set of characteristics that we've learned from our social environment.
Yeah. But that's the theory on it being socially constructed.
Yeah.
Period.
From what we see, gender does appear to be socially constructed. Like when you look at what you were saying pre-revolution in France and all of that, it's like, oh yeah, heels, they make our calves look more muscular and they make us taller and yada yada. It was all like masculine, yeah. And now it's like dainty feminine bloody things. So that I find it very difficult to see as anything but social. That is very socially constructed. But also we exist in a social environment where we interact with each other based on the construct that we put forward, like how we appear socially.
Yeah.
Someone sees you out in the street and they don't go, what are your gametes? What chromosomes do you have? Oh, I wonder, what's your primary and secondary sexual characteristics?
Right,
Those,
sure.
well, they don't look at those freaking things to determine how they're going to interact with me.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I'm going with this, but...
Well, I mean...
You said something interesting. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Lena.
You said something interesting right now that stuck out. Determine on how they're going to interact with me. So based on how they will stereotype your physical appearance will determine on how somebody's going to interact with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, social,
That's true.
right?
That's social, yeah.
Well, so I mean, let me throw this out here, because also in social constructionism are the ideas is like the idea of a plumber. Because like if you
pronounced plumber, but go on.
Plumbers who work with aluminium, presumably. In any event, the I've completely been thrown off. What the hell is it going to
sorry.
Oh, no, I've got it. So, there are social environments that don't have indoor plumbing. And did I say that correctly? Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But they don't. And so I mean, somebody comes walking in and goes, hello, I'm a plumber. And people go, okay, what the hell is that? It's a word that's given meaning because it's been... There are social environments in which it makes sense, but some of them it doesn't, So anyway, throw that out there as to, I kind of want to say that Judith Butler's graduate advisor, Jean-Michel Foucault, I think was his name, once again, speak French horribly. Maybe it's not Jean, maybe it's just, I don't know. Point being that I believe that's where the plumber example comes from.
You don't have to continue using plumber. I'm just being a dickhead.
I won't. Oh, it worked. No, it worked great. But but I guess I want to, so let me throw the question out here. I mean, like, that's a job, right? It's a job that makes sense in some social environments and doesn't make sense in other social environments. Is gender the same? Is gender similar?
I'm just visualizing a job description, like man and woman as job descriptions.
Right.
It's essentially what we do.
It is. But that's part of the performativity aspect of it, right? That we perform understood roles within a social environment. Just like a plumber comes in and says, I understand we're going to look at your pipes, and is performing that job role. And there's a social role involved in it as well, because presumably if you put this person among the Vanderbilts or something, they'll be like, oh, really, that's what you do with your time?
So what I'm feeling about this is that what changes the dynamic is survival. Like it's like we almost need to be able to identify with our gender to survive in society. You don't need to be a plumber to survive. I mean, maybe you do for a job for a living, but that identity itself is not meant for specific survival. Does that make sense?
I don't think man or woman would be necessary for that either.
Right. Okay.
Do you need gender? Here's a question then. Do you need gender on a desert island? The proverbial desert island?
No, we don't need it for survival, but I guess what I was going back to as far as like survival goes, I guess maybe going back to the whole biological, reproductive reason for being able to identify. Yeah, so kind of more to reproduce in that case, in that type of survival, like to, and a plumber, we really don't. That's the different type of identity. But when it comes to can your gender procreate, because ultimately I think that's what humans, I think that's what it's about.
Right. Oh,
and so that's when it becomes a social context. And people start bringing it into a societal context, because it's almost becomes like a battle of who is the greater reproducer here.
Right. Oh, it's something I was thinking about when I was taking a bike ride during the over the weekend, that like gender truly matters if what you want to do is reproduce. Or if you want to get intimate with somebody who has a particular configuration, like if you that's your bag.
Right.
And of course then, like, I would prefer that instead of saying, are you transgender, are you cisgender, I'd rather they just go, hey, do you like intimacy with this sort of configuration? Would we be compatible? I would rather just see that, especially if it were consensual.
Yeah.
But getting back to the point, if you go, listen, I'm a man and I want to reproduce. Okay. It makes a difference. Gender makes a difference.
Sure does.
Because I didn't say was the man cisgender or transgender, right? I mean,
right.
Person has to find somebody who's going to be capable of reproducing with him. So
yeah.
Otherwise,
which reminded me. I remember years ago, maybe about 6-7 years ago, there was this girl that I liked. Actually, she was my deaf teacher.
Oh, cool.
Deaf ASL teacher.
Yeah.
And she didn't find out I was transgender till later. But one of the reasons why she told me that she absolutely told me no to my face. No, this is no in sign language. I was like, oh my gosh, well, thank you. But later she says, I want to have babies. You can't do that. So I was like, okay. So it really wasn't fully that I was maybe different, but it was more that she wanted to reproduce, which, by the way, I'm happy to report she's married now with 2 babies. So I'm happy for her that she got her wish, But and so in that case, I think it would be great if society can change their ways of dating that way. What are you looking for? Are you looking to reproduce in a certain way? Because I may not be that person for it. Maybe I am. So
right. Oh, I mean, I saw a show. I mean, a couple of years back. It was a show before where somebody said they actually brought like a philosopher on. So I'm gonna, like, the show was kind of interesting because the person says, the host says, well, tell me, what's a woman? And the person says, well, you tell me first, like, what's a woman? And the person goes, well, she has a vagina. And so then now you start getting into more and more definitions. Well, what's a vagina? Okay, well, it has a canal. Okay, what if you have a canal? Well, it has to be a natural canal. Okay, so a natural canal. Well, what about ovaries? Okay, can the person reproduce? And so this, you get definitions that proliferate and proliferate. And there was a reason I even went started to, oh, I know, because it was a philosopher who goes, well, first we have to think about the defining characteristics, the phenomenon, the nomina of, and I'm like, no, you already, this is why people go, this is too damn hard. Gender shouldn't be this damn hard.
Right.
And I agree. I think we should be able to walk up to each other and go, you want to go in the back room and just like, have a couple smooches, maybe have a good time? Yeah, no, yeah, no, okay, it's cool. No, that's fine. And just go, what? Otherwise, what the hell else is worth, all of this regulating people and I mean, there's somebody who comes to my live streams who will say, is there no value to gendered opportunities or gendered groupings? Well, so
that sounds like Trump's CEO.
Women, wait, say that again, Jasmine?
That sounds like Trump's executive order.
It does.
Gendered opportunities.
Right, sex-based opportunities. Women's sports, women's locker rooms, men's locker rooms, boxing, wrestling. And so that's the point, And I continue to say, no, if there are women who will box the pants, well, I mean, now I have no male reproductive parts, but, would have boxed the pants off of me even when I did. So, should we go by capability, but then anyway. So is there no reason for them? And I'm going to go on record and say again, no, I don't think so. Because even if you look at medicine, if somebody says, well, it's good that we know this person's female because now I know she's going to need a pap smear. Is she? What if she had a total hysterectomy?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's not even...
I have to say that wouldn't matter, though, because I had a history of cervical cancer. Yeah. And so I had the cervix completely removed, and it wasn't in my vagina or anything, but just because it was so close to it, I had the chance, if I wanted to, close my vagina. Do you want to stitch that baby closed? Like, for just two reasons I can. A, maybe there's a chance. I'm not saying there will be, and neither am I putting the energy out there. But if cancer were to come back, how will they be able to go in there and figure out where it's starting? And second, I don't have a urinary bladder. And so if ever they need to get into my new made bladder, it'd be so easy to go in vaginally than to cut my abdomen open. So, I mean, it really goes on and on and on. Like, why would somebody keep their vagina? And I don't know. I just... Right. But I hear what you're saying.
Well, but that's an excellent point. I mean, it made the point that I was going to make, which is that if you have an F on your driver's license, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to need a pap smear. It doesn't necessarily, because, I mean, you just said, no, it's different for me in particular. And I will say, it's different for every patient in particular.
It is.
That's what medicine is. Medicine is not the you talk to every patient and, hey, what do you need? Okay. It hurts when you go like this. Okay. Most people don't. It doesn't hurt when you go like this. So go home. I mean, let me check your driver's license. It says M. Okay. Well, so no, that makes sense. Go ahead. Right? It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, it didn't come with an actual purpose. Just that's my whole thing.
I'm having a thought here.
Oh, thought.
I just called Winter in because I'm like, what is the differences? Okay. So we're talking about how people could relate just based on, what parts do you have and blah, 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 instead of putting it into these categories.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of what Winter was telling me about. Do you want to come and go on the screen? No, you don't. That's okay. You don't.
I don't know what to say.
That's okay. I'm sure you'll get it once I get my thoughts together. I am relating it to how people look at autism and how people used to say all the time, someone's like high functioning autistic or low functioning autistic, and how the preferred term that is coming in now is more around support needs, Like, what support needs do you need in communication, in like social areas, in physical hygiene areas, or this, and this, and this. So breaking it down by support needs instead. And I can see that being a similar kind of thing to what you're saying there, Amethysta, where it's like, it's not just you're high functioning, you're low functioning. You might be high functioning in some areas and low functioning in other areas.
Yeah.
It's more nuanced than that. So how do we actually relate to each other based on it? Like, we can't really relate to each other based on that category. If you look at me as like a high functioning autistic person, and then I'm having a day where it's complete meltdown mode and I can't do anything, someone might look at me and go, oh wow, they really struggle, they're really low functioning. It's like, it depends.
Yeah.
It changes.
I think you've said that the human experience, or at least the autistic experience, is not captured by high functioning and low functioning. I don't think the human experience is captured by what gamete you currently produce. So
no, it's really not.
Right, and that's why we need gender.
Just see everybody as human, you know, and it would just having their own little interplays in between. It would be a lot easier. But
yes,
you know, I teach a diversity class though. And what I'm learning or remembering in the diversity class, the reason why we can't say that we're human is because we're kind of those usually comes from people from a privileged standpoint, and rather than seeing people for, you know, the diverse culture that they come in. So it's really it's puzzling and it's challenging, because while some people would all want to be seen as human and equal, there's going to be many people that want to be seen for the diverse individual culture that they come from. Yeah. So we're going to have a little bit of both. And while we have a little bit of both, like, how can we bring it all together so that there's more peace within society, more acceptance, more awareness of love and equality of our diversity, and also wanting to be an inclusive proximity.
Yeah, I'm with you. How do we do that? Is that next week? Do we solve all the world's problems next week?
Well, I won't be here next week. Next week will be with my girlfriend for her birthday.
Right.
But I'm certain I can go live, and wouldn't it be funny if I could kind of make a quick sneak peek while I'm live, while I'm from my phone from where I'm at? Maybe I'll be able to do that.
Right. So here's an interesting point. I think this actually sort of says it all. So Margie says that her new GP, so general practitioner doctor, showed her the file in the computer system, so like her medical record, and it was adamant. Apparently the GP was adamantly insisting that she needed a pap smear and mammogram. Right. I mean, this is a medical professional going by the books, and I think that's already a bad thing. You know, everybody is so different, and it's funny because I would, like, if we go back 30 years.
I think she's talking about.
Hold on a minute.
What?
Oh wait, Jasmine, you were going to say something.
You don't think
I'm just saying, based on that comment there, I think she's actually talking about the computer system adamantly insisting, not the GP. So it's like how we've created the system. Sure. Male, female needs pap smear. It's like, what about female that has had hysterectomy? Like, sure. There you go. So we need more nuance in systems.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate that, and thanks for that clarification.
That makes sense.
Because I mean, all I was gonna say was, I mean, like, was basically say what you were gonna say, Jasmine, which is, you know, we need better systems. You know.
I'm surprised AI hasn't caught on to like how to fix that yet.
I think Jasmine will do something with ChatGPT.
This might be a topic for another time, but I wonder if the resistance to expanding those systems and like focusing on diversity, because right now diversity is majorly under attack, especially in the US, where radical gender ideology is erasing sex and ruining all these things. And it's just, why do we have to say assigned male at birth? It's just male. If you're born male, you're male and you're always male. It's like, because we are not defined by those things. Some people are males even by your freaking definition that you're putting forward and still require pap smears. Like, there's so much nuance. So how do we deal with the feeling of erasure if, like, this push of expanding these definitions and whatnot sometimes make people feel like their identities are being erased? And perhaps that's why there's such resistance to it. And I'm thinking specifically of sexuality in this case, because when I was growing up, I never really had any attraction to women that I was aware of. And I had a few boyfriends, and then I was at like a queer meetup one time, and a woman came over and was flirting with me, and I was like, oh, okay, like I can get into this. It's kind of cool. And for a lot of people, they'll freak out in that scenario and they'll go, oh my gosh, but I thought I was this and now I'm attracted to this, and what's going on? And they'll freak out and have like this crisis over it.
Yeah.
For me, I think because of how broadly I view like gender and sexuality, I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I think of it like music taste. It's like, okay, this is a country song. I'm not usually into country songs. I'm usually like pop and R&B, sure. But this country song's great. Cool. I'll listen to that. So not a lot of people react in that way, I've noticed. A lot of people have more of a strong reaction to, this is my sense of identity and this is what I've built up, and this thing is challenging that, therefore that thing is bad and I must erase it.
Yeah.
Something to talk about, perhaps.
That is something to talk about.
Challenges to identity. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I would agree.
Or perhaps it's a reason for backsliding on diversity initiatives, and I'm sure there's more we can think of. Maybe that's a conversation to have. Like, what is causing a negative reaction to diversity and inclusion training and things like that, and causing those backslides? I'd love to discuss that.
Diversity. We can talk about that next week. Not next week, because Lena won't be here. We'll wait.
I'll try to slide in.
The week after. But is that something that, like, the people in the chat, I just want to get an idea. Can you put in like a yay or a nay? Is that something that you'd find interesting to have a chat with us about? And while you're typing, I'll read these comments too.
Right.
It's nice and nuanced system.
Or is there something they would like to hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, or anything else, anything you can add to it.
By the way, so Zoe wrote into the comment here, says, when she changed GPs, my profile got set up as sex M, but gender F. I fucking hate it when I see gender as M and F. I'm like, really? Because I get that occasionally, on things that when I applied to WPath, by the way, when I was putting in the application there, it said there was no sex, they didn't care, it was gender, and there was a list of like 18 different things, and I was like, ooh, I gotta scroll through and find this. But the idea that the gender is male and female just makes me upset. I'm gonna stop. But so Margie says diversity, yes, let's talk about subtleties and surprising aspects. So I'm sorry, Jasmine, I spoke over you.
I want to write that down, what you just said, because that's another barrier that people talk about. And it's like, I just want to choose M and F, like the people who are privileged enough to never have had to think about it feel very comfortable with that system. It works for them. But if they have to scroll through like, what, there's 16 identities here, they find it ridiculous.
And I would challenge that too. Because how often do you have to do this? First of all. And second of all, now we're running out of time. What's that?
And how often should you have to do it?
That's a better question, really. I mean, I got a vaccine at one point. that said, and I had to fill something out because I was getting a COVID vaccine to go to Thailand, and I'm filling it out. There's a box at the top that said assign sex at birth. I didn't check anything. I brought it back to the person and I said, does this make a difference? And she goes, no. I said, do the dosages change? No. Does the strength change? No. Does where you administer it change? No. I said, why is this on here? And she said, that's conservatism crystallized into a form. And I went, I'm not going to check it. And she goes, that's fine. Why would you put that? Why would you even ask? Why do you care? I'm just give me a vaccine, right? So,
and why does it matter? All the bloody studies, medical wise, are done on like men, so it doesn't make a freaking difference.
Not really, right? All the clinical studies. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, should we pause for now? We're an hour and 10 minutes in. Yeah.
I'm wondering, Mr. Alino, can either of you do like a little bit of a summary of things? Because I wasn't writing things down this time.
Neither did I. I mean,
oh dear.
I think the only summary is that gender, we can deconstruct gender, and I think you can continue to deconstruct gender to the nth degree because there are always counterexamples. It doesn't make a difference with how you try to define something in gender unless you define gender as just the individual expression of many different axes. You end up with something that has counterexamples. So I think that's where I go.
I like that.
Because I think even with the social construct, Simone de Beauvoir's gender roles,
it's really individual.
It is. Well, I mean, that's the biological definition right there. It's an individual expression of genetics, biochemistry, psychology, behavior, and all of it expressed within a social environment. Nowhere in there does it say, does it have species? Nowhere in there does it have, Anyway, it's a weird thing that we have to deal with for all of this. So 2 weeks we'll talk about diversity though. Oh, I'm sorry, Jasmine.
Add a little note. Sex being not just the gamete side of things, but all of it, like the hormones, reproductive organs, chromosomes, genitalia, all of that kind of stuff.
Those are aspects of gender, though, because it's individual.
Oh,
those are individual. Because what's genitalia? Is that people with foreskins? Is it people without foreskins? Is it people who have a deep vaginal cavity? People who have a very open cervix? It's not genitalia, and those would have come from biochemistry and genetics, so it can't be biochemistry or genetics. That's why sex is so abstract.
Interesting.
It has to be. Everything else has to do with an individual, and genetics is too vague to make definitions.
You that I was talking to about the definition needing to be to the exclusion of other things?
Yes.
Or perhaps that was more of you breaking down the executive order or something.
I think it was.
I remember you talking.
A good definition. Yeah,
based
excludes.
on sex not be to the exclusion of other things as well. Because even if we're talking about gametes, if there's creatures that can create large and small gametes at the same time, and change them depending on their fishy feelings,
right?
Then is that not to the exclusion? Not that's a double negative. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and so I guess the question, I mean, if you were to say, here is an organism that can create both gametes, because we've observed it in humans too. I mean, what is this? We don't have an answer for it. It's this is a hermaphrodite, can create both, not male, not female. But look at, I mean, when humans, I'm trying to figure out how I want to construct this sentence. Humans assigned male at birth are infants. They're not creating gametes.
Yeah.
Women post-menopause are at least not secreting gametes that could be used for reproduction. What do we call those people? All they are just individuals who have reached a different point in their biology and their biochemistry, hormonal hormonal balance, whatever. And that's why sex is too restrictive, because everybody has totally different expressions on all of these genetics,
different
hormones,
stages of the human life.
Yeah, right. And then what if you had an accident, right? You got in an accident and somehow you ended up with both your testicles removed, Are you still a man? Sure. Are you male?
I had that
Nope.
recently.
Did you?
Yeah, paid $7,000 for it.
Best $7,000 you ever spent, huh?
Oh, Jesus. But okay, we went on a tangent, but all I was coming to with that is any of the external expressions of biology or whatever, I don't know what we're calling it. I would call it external expressions of sex, but I'm challenged on that now. But regardless, we interact with each other based on the perceived gender of someone. Like, we don't perceive someone's sex as accurately as we perceive someone's gender.
Yes, I would agree.
That's my final word, anyway.
That's a great summary. We are better at perceiving gender than we are at perceiving sex.
Any closing words, Lino?
And we're better than, I don't know. I guess that's
energy. I'm expecting energy to come out.
and then also, we're all just here to figure out how to love ourselves a little more. And so that's what all this clarity is about. Because when somebody can start to feel like they fit in or they belong somewhere, then they can open up the doors to a little bit more self-love and loving everybody else for who they are, how they choose to be.
We can science this and legislate this all day long. But
I have another final word.
Okay, go.
Lena, you were talking earlier about, the frequency of vibration, how when we're vibrating a low frequency, that's what causes physical matter.
Yeah.
And if we're a higher frequency, it's light and all that. Yes. And when it comes to anything that we can perceive within the human experience, whether it be sex or gender or whatever, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like at the end
of the day. It's funny, it doesn't matter, get it? Yeah.
I did that on purpose. You know what? There's a poem in that. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's really down in the weeds. It's down in the details, because what really matters is what's the word? It's much more important than any of that stuff we can get caught up in. I always think of this whenever I'm looking at any sort of hateful comments or anything, like getting stuck in the details of sexuality or gender or whatever. It doesn't make me happier. It doesn't make me a better person. It doesn't make me more connected to my purpose or make me spread love any more or less. It's not helpful when it comes to the things that are really important.
Right.
I swear I was going somewhere with that, but I don't know.
I think that ended just fine.
I think so.
Focus on what's actually important.
Yeah, focus on what matters.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, then why don't
focus on what matters, because matter doesn't.
Oh my God, I love it.
There you go.
Focus on what matters because matter doesn't.
I love that.
Oh my goodness.
All right, well, I'll read the outro that we have here. So we could talk about this for hours, as you see.
The outro, you just go into it. How about this?
No, I know you do, but I always do this on my own podcast too, where I'm like, well, I guess I'll sum up. And the people are like, all right, go at it. Anyway, obviously.
It's like saying, I'm going to tell you the story before telling a story. Just tell the story.
No, I do. See, sometimes I like to set the stage and have people go, oh God, is she ever going to get into it? See,
Anyway, I'm going to zip my mouth and let Amethyst close it up, because otherwise I'll keep interrupting.
Right. So we're going to end this here. If you have any requests for future topics, by all means, or by whatever means, I guess, the one mean, which is to leave a comment below. And if we get the chance, we'll talk about it, and then we'll even give you a shout out for the idea, which is kind of cool, right? To be shouted out by Jasmine Vine and Dr. Lena Martinez. I shout you out all the time, so it does make a difference. But so thank you so much to all of you for joining in on the conversation. We got, I know, definitely at the very least, Margie and Zoe, and there was another
Brooklyn.
Oh yes, Brooklyn. Thank you. So thank you so much, all of you who have tuned in live, and all of you who are going to watch this after the fact. We all think you're pretty dang cool for wanting to focus on our shared humanity. So we're going to send you loads of love.
Yeah.
Loads of love. And we'll see you, I guess, so it's going to be 2 weeks, right? So Lena, we'll wait for you next week.
2 weeks. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Humanity. Yeah. Come on, I can tell you.
What?